There are moments in life that pass like whispers. Soft, fleeting, easy to miss. But then there are moments like this. Moments that don't just speak, they summon. When time feels suspended, and something deeper than thought begins to stir in your soul. Not noise, not emotion, but a sacred pull, as if eternity is brushing against the edge of your now. This is one of those moments. Chosen one. This is not a coincidence. This is not just another video. Heaven is leaning in, and I need you to listen. Not with your ears, but with your heart. Because today, something sacred is being spoken over your life. You've been carrying questions in your spirit. Quiet ones you didn't say out loud. You've stood in moments where your faith felt faint, your prayers unanswered, and your strength gone. You've wondered if God still sees you, if He's still speaking, if He still has a plan for someone like you. And now, here you are. You didn't stumble across this message by accident. You were drawn here by divine appointment. The same God who split the sea, who spoke to Moses from a burning bush, who called David from the field and raised Lazarus from the grave. That same God is reaching for you, right now. He's not just offering you comfort. He's offering you a promise. 7 of them, to be exact. 7 sacred declarations, etched into eternity, sealed by His word, and whispered directly into the hearts of those willing to receive. These aren't just phrases. They are the keys that unlock peace in chaos, strength in weakness, and hope in the darkest nights. And one of them is the very promise your soul has been crying out for. Maybe you've been walking through a season where everything feels like a wilderness. Dry, silent, directionless. Maybe you've looked at your reflection and struggled to recognize the person in the mirror. Maybe you've even asked God, "Where are you?" And now, He's answering, not in thunder or fire, but in this moment of stillness. The Lord told me to tell you, He has not forgotten you. He has not changed His mind about you. He's been walking beside you, even when you couldn't feel it. Every tear, every heartbreak, every unanswered prayer has been collected, not wasted. And now, it's time. Time for your heart to remember what your soul already knows. There are promises over your life, unchanging, unshakable, and eternal. Promises that cover you, strengthen you, guide you, and lift you. Promises that reach beyond your mistakes and speak to who you truly are. Chosen, called, loved. These 7 promises will not just touch your emotions. They will ignite your spirit. So don't just watch, receive. Because the God of all creation is about to remind you what's been true all along. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. And you are not without purpose. Before this video ends, something will shift. The fear that's held you hostage, it will break. The shame that's lingered too long, it will lift. The question of whether God still speaks, it will be answered. He does. And He is. Right now. To you. So I need you to lean in. Let go of distractions. Still your heart. Let your spirit be open, even if your mind is tired. Because these 7 promises are not just truths. They are invitations. And your name is written on each one. Are you ready? Are you willing to believe again? Because what God is about to reveal will change everything. What if I told you that God has been speaking to you this entire time? Not in thunderclaps or lightning bolts, but in the quiet continuity of your breath, in the way the sun still rises, the way your heart still beats, the way hope somehow refuses to die in you, even when everything else seems to fall away. You see, we often wait for God to make a grand entrance, to rewrite our pain with instant miracles or shout answers into our confusion. But what if the answers were already given? What if the promises have already been spoken? waiting not to be shouted from the heavens, but received by a willing heart. There is a divine pattern that runs through all of Scripture, woven from Genesis to Revelation, one that reveals not just what God does, but who He is. And from that sacred identity flows 7 eternal promises, unshakable and alive, not promises born from the lips of men, but declarations spoken from the very heart of the Father. Promises that don't expire. Promises that don't depend on your performance. Promises that are yours, not when you're perfect, but simply when you're willing. And these 7 promises, they are more than theology. They are rescue ropes, lamps for your feet, anchors for your soul. They are the answer to every fear, every doubt, every silent ache in the chambers of your heart. God's promises are not just sentences on paper. They are seeds of power, and when they are believed, truly received, they begin to reshape your life from the inside out. The first time you hear them, they may sound familiar. You may have read them before, heard them preached, sung them in worship. But something changes when they move from the page to your spirit, when they become not just truth in general, but truth for you. That is the turning point. That is where faith is born, not just in knowing what God can do, but believing that He will do it for you. But how do you step into that? How do you move from hearing promises to living them? What does it take to truly walk in what God has spoken over your life? That is the journey we're about to take together. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to feel holy or confident or strong. All you need is a heart that's open, a spirit that's willing to believe that the same God who fulfilled His promises for Abraham, for Joseph, for Ruth, for David, and for Mary, is ready to fulfill them for you too. One promise at a time, we'll peel back the veil. One promise at a time, we'll break the lies that have kept you stuck. One promise at a time, we'll rebuild what life tried to tear down, not with empty inspiration, but with divine revelation, truth that sets captives free. You've come too far to live beneath what God has spoken over you. So I ask you again, are you ready to remember who you are? Are you ready to walk in what has always been yours? Then let us begin. Promise 1. I will be with you. It always starts in the silence, the kind of silence that stretches long after midnight, when the noise of the world fades and all that's left is your own breath, your thoughts echoing louder than you wish they would. You stare at the ceiling, maybe praying, maybe doubting, maybe both, and somewhere deep inside you whisper, God, are you still here? That's when the first promise comes, not as a command, not as a demand, but as a gentle assurance. I will be with you. It's the first thing God said to Moses when he trembled at the burning bush. Before the miracles, before the plagues, before the Exodus, before Moses even believed in himself, God gave him this: I will be with you. And that was enough, because presence changes everything. We tend to ask God for answers, for deliverance, for direction. But His greatest gift is not what He does, it's who He is. His presence is the promise that steadies your heart when logic fails, when friends walk away, when fear closes in. His presence is the fire that keeps you warm in the wilderness, the shadow that covers you in the heat of the day, the whisper that speaks louder than the storm. Do you remember the disciples, caught in the middle of the sea, their boat tossed by a violent wind? They cried out in terror, thinking Jesus had left them. But then He came, walking on the waves, on the very thing that threatened to destroy them. And He said, Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid. He didn't remove the storm first. He reminded them of His presence. I am here. I have always been here. You may not see Him with your eyes. You may not always feel Him in your emotions. But if you look closely, If you listen with your spirit, you'll start to see the fingerprints. The moments you were held when you should have fallen. The peace that made no sense. The doors that opened when they should have stayed shut. The strength to keep going when everything in you wanted to give up. I will be with you. It's not a promise made lightly. It's not a poetic metaphor. It's the heartbeat of the Father for His children. It means you are never walking alone. Not through grief, not through failure, not through uncertainty, not through transition. And maybe that's all you need right now. Not a solution, not a sign, just the knowing, the deep, unshakable knowing that you are not abandoned. When God says, I will be with you, He is not promising the absence of struggle. He's promising His presence in the struggle, and that changes the entire equation. So wherever you are right now, whatever season, whatever heartache, whatever hope still flickers in the dark, pause, breathe, and hear it again. I will be with you, not for a moment, not only when you're strong, not only when you get it all right, but always, through every valley, over every mountain, into eternity, and that is where your journey begins. Promise 2. I will strengthen you. There comes a point in every journey where your knees start to buckle, not from a single blow, but from the weight of everything. The responsibilities, the regrets, the things you carry in silence because no one else would understand. You smile on the outside, you keep walking, but deep inside, you're tired. Soul tired. It's in this sacred place, where your strength runs dry, that the second promise speaks. I will strengthen you. Not you should be stronger. Not why can't you handle this by now. No, just this. I will strengthen you. It's not a demand. It's an offering. Do you remember Elijah, the prophet of fire? The one who stood boldly on Mount Carmel and called down the power of God in front of kings and false prophets? Even he ran. Even he collapsed beneath a tree and begged God to take his life. He had nothing left to give. But God didn't rebuke him. He didn't say, "Where's your faith?" Instead, He sent an angel with bread and water. And the angel said something so simple, so divine. Arise and eat, for the journey is too much for you. Too much for you, but not for the one who walks with you. God's strength doesn't just appear in thunderbolts. Often, it comes in the quiet, like bread on hot stones, like a gentle hand shaking you awake. His strength doesn't always remove the trial. It sustains you through it. It's the supernatural resilience that allows you to wake up and try again when you thought you'd be finished for good. Have you ever wondered how Paul endured all that he did? Imprisoned, beaten, shipwrecked, betrayed, and yet he writes, "When I am weak, then I am strong." Not because he glorified weakness, but because in that weakness, something holy happened. God filled in the gaps. Grace became strength. Brokenness became testimony. And now here you are. Maybe your strength is fading. Maybe the things you once carried with ease now feel impossible. Maybe you've been pretending you're fine when you're anything but. Hear this. God never asked you to do it in your own strength. He never intended for you to carry it alone. His promise is not that you will always feel strong. His promise is that when you have nothing left, He will be enough. I will strengthen you. He will strengthen your heart when anxiety wants to steal your breath. He will strengthen your mind when lies scream louder than truth. He will strengthen your hands when your calling feels too heavy. He will strengthen your spirit when grief grips you in the night. This is not motivational fluff. This is the word of the living God. You are not weak because you're weary. You're not broken because you're bending under the weight. You're not failing because you need help. You're human, and He is divine. And when humanity meets divinity, something miraculous happens. Strength rises. So today, if all you can do is whisper, "Lord, I can't keep going," let that be your offering, because He will meet you right there, with supernatural strength that does not run dry. Those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. He promised, and He cannot lie. Promise 3. I will guide you. There's a sacred kind of fear that settles in when you reach a crossroads and have no idea which way to go. One path looks familiar, but unfulfilling. Another is unknown, full of risk and shadows. And sometimes, the road you thought was yours suddenly vanishes beneath your feet. You ask God for a sign, a word, anything. But the silence feels like a wall, and the question rises louder than ever. Lord, what do I do now? It's in this uncertainty that the third promise breaks through the fog like a sunrise. I will guide you. Not I might help if you make the right choice. Not you're on your own unless you get it perfect. No, God says, I will guide you. This is the same God who led Israel by a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. The God who whispered to Samuel in the quiet of the temple. The God who took fishermen and made them apostles, not because they had GPS, but because they followed His voice. He doesn't just give directions. He becomes the way. And sometimes His guidance is not a loud shout, but a quiet nudge, a hesitation in your spirit, a scripture that won't leave you alone, a door that closes even when you were sure it would open. It may not always make sense, but that doesn't make it less divine. Think of Abraham. God didn't hand him a map. He simply said, "Go to the land I will show you." That's it. No coordinates, no timeline, just a promise and a presence. And Abraham walked by faith, not by sight. You may be standing at a threshold right now, afraid to move forward because you don't want to get it wrong. But what if God's guidance doesn't depend on your perfection, but on your willingness to follow? What if the greatest act of faith isn't knowing the destination, but trusting the one who's leading you? Isaiah 30 verse 21 says, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" That voice isn't just for prophets and pastors. It's for you. In the hospital room, in the job search, in the quiet choice to forgive or to hold on, in the decisions no one else sees but weigh heavy on your heart. God sees the road you're walking. Even when you feel blind, He sees it all. And He's not a passive observer. He's an active guide. He'll go before you, making the crooked places straight. He'll walk beside you, keeping your steps steady. He'll come behind you, redeeming every detour. Maybe you've made some wrong turns. Maybe you feel like you're off course. But hear this, God is not lost, and you are not beyond His reach. His guidance includes grace. His direction includes detours. And He knows how to bring you back. Not to where you were, but to where you were always meant to be. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. Psalm 32 verse 8. You don't need all the answers. You just need to trust the one who holds the map. So breathe, listen, and take that next step. He's not just waiting at the destination. He's walking the road with you. Promise 4. I will provide for you. Hunger doesn't always show up as an empty stomach. Sometimes it shows up as an ache in the soul, a longing for stability, security, something solid to hold on to when everything else feels uncertain. You work hard. You pray. You do what you can. But there are days when the numbers don't add up, the answers don't come, and you wonder how long you'll have to live between almost and not enough. And then, in that dry and barren place, God speaks the fourth promise. I will provide for you. He doesn't say, I'll provide for the perfect. He doesn't say, I'll only provide once you've proven yourself. No. He says it simply, fully, and with unwavering certainty. I will provide. Do you remember the wilderness? 40 years of wandering. No farms. No markets. Just heat, dust, and desperation. And yet, every single morning, fresh manna covered the ground. Every evening, quail flew into the camp. Water gushed from unexpected places. Rocks, of all things, not because the people were faithful, but because He was. He provided not just once, but daily. And that's what we often forget. God's provision isn't always about the miraculous windfall or the long-awaited breakthrough. Sometimes it's the daily bread, the unexpected favor, the friend who shows up, the job you weren't qualified for, the strength to make it through this day, even when tomorrow feels impossible. Provision is not always about quantity. It's about sufficiency. And in the New Testament, we see it again, this time in the hands of Jesus. A hungry crowd, a few loaves, a couple of fish, nowhere near enough. The disciples panic, do the math, and declare what they see, lack. But Jesus takes what little they have, blesses it, breaks it, and multiplies it, and somehow everyone eats. Not just a bite, not just a taste. The Bible says they were satisfied, and still there were leftovers. Because when God provides, He doesn't just meet the need, He reveals His heart. Maybe right now, your life feels like 5 loaves and 2 fish. Too little, too late, too far gone. But hear me, in the hands of God, nothing is too little. He doesn't just look at your bank account or your resume. He looks at your faith. And when faith is placed in His hands, miracles begin to multiply. You don't have to chase what you need. You just have to trust the one who already knows. Jesus said in Matthew 6, Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? That's the question, isn't it? Do you believe you're valuable enough for Him to care? Do you believe He sees you? Not just the world, but you? He does. You are not forgotten. You are not invisible. And you are not forsaken. So when the bills pile up, when the doors stay shut, when the oil runs low and the jars feel empty, lift your eyes. Remember who your provider is. He fed prophets with ravens. He sent manna in the desert. He multiplied bread in the wilderness. He poured oil for widows. And He will provide for you. Maybe not in the way you expected. Maybe not on the timeline you hoped for. But in the fullness of His love. And always on time. Promise 5. I will forgive you. Some wounds don't bleed on the outside. They hide beneath the surface, like shadows in the soul, reminders of things we wish we could forget, words we spoke in anger, choices we made when we weren't thinking straight, seasons where we wandered too far, stayed too long, or pretended we were fine while guilt slowly drowned us. And maybe, if you're honest, you've asked the question, how could God still love someone like me? It's there, in the weight of shame and the silence of regret, that the 5th promise comes like a fresh wind to a weary soul. I will forgive you. He doesn't say, I might. He doesn't say, If you earn it, maybe. He says, with divine certainty, I will. We live in a world that loves conditions. Forgiveness, if you make it right. Love, if you behave. Grace, only if you deserve it. But the heart of God is not like the heart of man. Where others write you off, God writes mercy in bold, red letters across your story. Look at David, a man after God's heart, yes, but also a man who failed, who sinned, who fell in ways that most people would never recover from. And yet when David cried out, "Create in me a clean heart, O God," God didn't turn away. He restored him, not partially, not conditionally, but fully, because that's what forgiveness does. It doesn't just cover, it restores. Jesus showed us this on the cross, didn't he? As the nails tore through his hands and the crowd mocked his pain, he didn't curse. He didn't retaliate. He looked toward heaven and said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Before they repented, before they understood, before they changed, he chose forgiveness, and he's still choosing it for you. You may think your past disqualifies you, that the thing you did, or the person you were, is just too far gone. But grace is scandalous like that. It reaches lower than you think God would go, and lifts you higher than you ever thought possible. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. 1 John 1 verse 9. Faithful, just, forgiving. Those aren't just adjectives. They're promises. You don't have to live chained to your failures. You don't have to keep hiding. You don't have to be defined by what you've done. God isn't looking for perfection. He's looking for surrender. And when you bring your broken pieces to him, he doesn't shame you. He doesn't replay your mistakes. He wraps his mercy around your soul and whispers, I still choose you. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's not a loophole. It's the power of heaven washing away what hell tried to use to define you. So come, bring your secrets, your shame, your story. Lay them down and let him do what only he can, make you new. You are not too far. You are not too broken. You are not unforgivable. You are loved. You are chosen. You are redeemed. And above all, you are forgiven. Promise 6. I will give you peace. There's a kind of storm that no one sees. It doesn't show up on the radar. It doesn't rumble with thunder or flash with lightning. It lives inside you, in your chest, in your thoughts, in the heaviness behind your smile. It's the kind of storm that keeps you awake at night, staring at the ceiling, trying to quiet the chaos that never seems to rest. And then, into the center of that storm comes a whisper, gentle, steady, eternal. I will give you peace. Not I'll teach you how to escape the noise. Not try harder to be calm. No, God says, I will give, as if peace were a gift he's been holding in his hand, waiting for you to open yours. The world offers a counterfeit peace, the kind that comes from control, predictability, success. But that peace is fragile. It shatters the moment life doesn't go according to plan. God's peace is different. It's the kind that held Daniel steady when he stood among lions, the kind that kept Peter sleeping in prison the night before his execution, the kind that wrapped around Jesus in the storm as waves crashed over the boat, and he slept unshaken. This peace is not circumstantial. It's supernatural. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Philippians 4 verse 7. That's the promise. Not peace that makes sense, but peace that surpasses it. The kind of peace that shows up in hospital rooms, in courtroom hallways, in silent moments of heartbreak, in the middle of unknowns. You may not be able to stop the waves. You may not be able to fix everything that's falling apart. But peace is not the absence of struggle. Peace is the presence of someone greater than the storm. Jesus said in John 14 verse 27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Do not let your heart be troubled, and do not be afraid." That means peace is not a personality type. It's not reserved for the calm or the strong. It's for you, right now, even in the mess, even in the waiting. You don't have to fake calm. You don't have to pretend you're okay. You just have to be still and let him speak. And he will, because he is not just a God who brings peace. He is peace. So if the storm hasn't stopped, don't panic. If the questions still linger, don't run. If your soul feels tired, don't hide. He hasn't left you. He hasn't forgotten you. He's in the boat with you right now, holding out his hand, saying, "Peace, be still." And whether the waves obey or not, your soul can. Because his peace isn't dependent on what's around you. It's rooted in who is within you. So take a breath. Not because the world is perfect, but because the one who holds your world has promised, "I will give you peace." And when he gives, it never runs out. Promise 7. I will never leave you. There is a silence that hurts more than any word, not the silence of rest, but the silence of abandonment, the kind that leaves you wondering if anyone sees you, if anyone cares, if God still hears your voice in the dark. And perhaps the hardest part is this: sometimes you can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. But right there, in the most vulnerable place of all, comes the final promise. I will never leave you. Not when you're faithful. Not when you're strong. Not when you get it right. Never. It's the kind of promise that carries eternal weight, the kind God has been speaking from the beginning of time. When he walked with Adam in the garden, when he stood with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire, when he whispered to Elijah in the cave, when Jesus breathed his last breath and the veil was torn in two, declaring once and for all, I am with you, always. Do you remember the story of Joseph? Sold by his brothers, forgotten in prison, misunderstood, mistreated, left to rot in a land that was not his own. But there is a quiet thread running through every chapter of Joseph's life, a single phrase that follows him like a shadow. And the Lord was with Joseph, in the pit, in the prison, in the palace. God never left him, and he hasn't left you. You may have walked through heartbreak. You may have stood at the grave of someone you loved. You may have faced betrayal you didn't deserve. You may have questioned your own worth more times than you can count. But hear this: your pain is not proof of his absence. In fact, the places that seem the most desolate are often where his presence is closest, because he's not afraid of your questions. He's not intimidated by your doubts. He doesn't disappear when you fall apart. He draws near. He walks into hospital rooms. He sits beside you in the middle of the night. He holds you when the tears won't stop. And sometimes, he's the reason you made it through, even when you thought you wouldn't. Jesus himself promised it in Matthew 28 verse 20. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age. Always. Not until you mess up. Not until the storm gets too loud. Not until you run out of prayers. Always. So if you've been wondering if God's still here, let this promise sink deep into your spirit. He never left, and He never will. You don't have to earn His presence. You don't have to fight for His attention. You are not alone. And you never were. That still, quiet strength you felt when you had no words to pray, that was Him. That sense of peace in the middle of chaos, that was Him. That moment you wanted to quit, but something kept you going, that was Him. He is Emmanuel, God with us, and He is with you, right now, in this moment, in this breath. He sees you, He knows you, and He's not going anywhere. I will never leave you, nor forsake you. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Now, pause. Not just in your body, but in your soul. Let everything else fade away. The distractions, the doubts, the noise of the world. You've heard the promises. You've felt the truth stirring deep within. This is not just information. This is invitation. Because you can't walk away from a moment like this and pretend it didn't matter. Something holy is happening right now. A divine confrontation between who you've been and who God is calling you to become. You've been marked, chosen one, not by your failures, not by your trauma, not by your past. You've been marked by promise. And now the question hangs in the air. So gentle, so sacred, yet so piercing. Will you believe Him? Not just believe in Him, but believe Him. Believe what He's spoken over you. Believe that these 7 promises weren't just for someone else, that they weren't abstract poetry or distant theology, but lifelines sent to you. He promised to be with you. He promised to strengthen you. He promised to guide you. He promised to provide for you. He promised to forgive you. He promised to give you peace. He promised to never leave you. These aren't things to admire from a distance. They are truths to live from. And I know, maybe part of you still hesitates. Maybe your heart says yes, but your history holds you back. You've trusted before and been let down. You've hoped before and ended up hurt. But hear me, God is not like people. He doesn't lie. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't get tired of your questions or walk away when you're at your worst. He finishes what He starts. And if He brought you this far, it's because He's ready to bring you further. This is your turning point. This is the moment the enemy feared you would reach. The moment when your faith starts to rise again, not because everything's perfect, but because you realize that He is enough. You've carried burdens that weren't yours. You've fought battles in your own strength. You've lived beneath the level of life God designed for you. But now, it's time to rise. It's time to walk in the fullness of these promises, not just as words, but as weapons, not just as comfort, but as commission. He has not called you to survive. He has called you to stand, to walk like someone who knows they're never alone, to speak like someone who's been forgiven, to move forward like someone who is guided by heaven, to rest like someone who knows provision is coming, to breathe deeply, knowing peace has already been given, to live boldly, knowing He will never leave your side. And you don't need a sign to get started. This is the sign. This is the moment. This is your now. Heaven is not waiting on your perfection. It's waiting on your surrender. So take the step. Not because you feel ready, but because He is faithful. Not because you know every answer, but because you trust the one who does. Not because you're strong, but because you're finally willing to let Him be. Lift your hands. Open your heart. Speak the words that shift the atmosphere. God, I believe you. Say it with trembling if you must. Say it through the tears. But say it, because everything changes when faith awakens. You were never meant to live bound by fear. You were created for a life anchored in promise. And those promises are not waiting on the other side of perfection. They are here, right now, wrapped in grace. So this is it. The line in the sand. The turning of the page. The holy moment that marks a before and an after. Will you walk away unchanged? Or will you rise in faith and step into what's always been yours? The promises have been spoken. The invitation has been made. And now, it's your move. Take a deep breath, chosen one. Let the dust of doubt settle. Let the noise fall away. You've walked through something sacred. 7 promises, spoken by the voice of the Almighty, now etched into the fabric of your soul. But this isn't the end. This isn't the final word. This is only the beginning. Because when God speaks, He doesn't just declare who He is. He reveals who you are becoming. You're not just someone who heard promises. You're someone who carries them. They're not just ideas to admire. They're foundations to build your life on. So when fear rises again, and it will, you'll remember. He is with you. When your strength fades, you'll say, He promised to uphold me. When the path is unclear, you'll whisper, He is guiding me still. When lack shows its face, your soul will answer, My God will provide. When shame tries to creep in, you'll shut the door with truth. I am forgiven. When anxiety knocks, you'll stand your ground. I walk in His peace. And when loneliness tries to isolate you, your spirit will rise and declare, He has never left me, and He never will. You're not who you were at the beginning of this message. You're walking lighter. You're thinking clearer. Your heart knows it, even if your mind is still catching up. God is near, and His word is true. The world will try to pull you back into fear, hustle, and uncertainty. But you've tasted something higher. And once you know who God really is, you can't go back to living like you're on your own. So step forward with quiet confidence. Not arrogance. Not performance. Just a holy assurance that comes from walking hand in hand with your Creator. Every promise He's made is a seed. And now that it's been planted in your heart, it will grow. Maybe slowly. Maybe unexpectedly. But it will grow. And in the days to come, when answers are delayed or storms try to shake your foundation, you'll look back to this moment. This divine pause in time when God whispered to your soul, I see you, I'm with you, and my promises will never fail you. Let that be your anthem. Let that be your anchor. Because what He has started in you, He will finish. And what lies ahead? Oh, it's greater than you can imagine. So keep walking, keep believing, keep trusting. The Promise Keeper is not done with you yet. Before you go, take a moment. Let your heart sit with what you've heard. Which promise spoke to you the loudest today? Was it the peace you've been longing for? The strength you didn't know you needed? The quiet reminder that you've never truly been alone? If something in this message stirred your spirit, I invite you to share it in the comments below. Not as a performance, but as a testimony. Your words could be the confirmation someone else is waiting for. What God is doing in you, He can do in them too. And if you're still in the middle of your journey, still wrestling, still waiting, know this, you are not alone. There's a community of faith rising around you, and we're standing with you in prayer, in hope, in trust. Because this isn't just a video. It's a moment of divine alignment. It's a doorway, and it's just the beginning. So let's walk forward, together, as promise carriers. And remember, He who promised is faithful. This message was brought to you through AI narration, but the words and the truth within them remain as powerful and real as ever.